Everyone. My name is Apoorva Reddy, and I'm from the World Bank Solutions for Youth Employment team. We are a partnership coalition, primarily in the World Bank, where we work on advancing employment opportunities, especially productive employment opportunities for globally, specifically in lower and middle income countries. Today, we are really excited to have Rachel Tamoy from Educate, who is working actively on the Educate's livelihood bootcamps focused on women entrepreneurship in Africa. Uh, this is part of a larger umbrella which is called the Women in Unconventional Jobs Learning Series, where we explore very interesting programs around the world who are working with women on the grassroots in unconventional jobs such as logistics, data science, entrepreneurship, finance, sport, etc. So really excited to have Rachel, who's the director of institutional partnerships at Educate. Rachel, could you tell us a little bit about the program and the program components of how these livelihood bootcamps are structured?
Definitely. And I think something that I'd highlight even before we get into the flesh of things, that I'm personally based in Nairobi, Kenya, which is one of the countries that we serve in within our boot camps, and Kenya and Uganda. So happy to share my experience and also the story of Educate. So definitely around our boot camps, what we mainly do is we're developing an out-of-school youth initiative, especially targeting young women and girls in rural communities. So urban areas are not part of our target population as of now. And our aim is to equip them with the skills so that they can have the agency to actually build their livelihoods and secure income for themselves and that of their families. So beginning with an overview of Educate, and I'd like to say Educate with an exclamation mark because it emphasizes the work that we do and also differentiates that with other I would say organizations that also have a similar name. So Educate with exclamation mark. So our purpose basically is to prepare youth in Africa with the skills to succeed in today's economy. And our long-term vision, as you can see in the slide, is to design skills-based education programs and employment solutions that actually measurably impact millions and millions of youth across Africa each year. So our goal is that in the next coming years, we will be able to reach millions of youth every year for multiple years until all the youth in Africa are actually equipped to succeed in today's economy. So our work is basically driven by a fundamental belief that youth are the solution to many of the world's problems. And I know even yourselves in your entities, in your context, you actually can attest to this. So, but the unfortunate reality of it all is that a good number of them aren't actually given the skills to do this. Right? The opportunities to succeed are not many. And case in point, in Africa, the statistics state currently that between 10 to 12 million youth actually are, sent into the job market every year, but only 3 million jobs are available. So the math is not mathing, as the statement we keep saying in the social media these days. The math is not mathing. 10 million to 12 million, but only 3 million jobs available for youth. So leaving very many youth either underemployed or actually without employment in the first place. So in response to this need, us as Educate, we've created a core experience with the most essential skills to be able to respond to the need that the youth are facing. So the experience centers around transferable skills, as you can see on the screen. We see this as building blocks for long-term success. So on top of that foundation, we learn entrepreneurial skills that youth in East Africa need to thrive in the informal sector, which is where actually 85% of the job market or the opportunities lie in. And then when the youth build these skills through the skills course that we provide, the practical experience that we have, and the mentorship component that we also provide to them, they're actually able to position themselves to be able to respond to the needs within their community and also earn an income for themselves and that for their community at large. So traditionally, Educate delivered this experience through schools. And we started this in Uganda. So we would deliver this through schools specifically, and secondary education or secondary schools being the target that we worked with. And more recently, based on the needs that and the data that we're collecting and the gaps that are in the society that we serve, we asked ourselves, what about those who are not in school? Yeah, we've seen such measurable success, very good results from our in-school solutions. And we asked ourselves, yes, we are doing well with the in-school population, but what about those who are out of school youth? And because around 50 to 70% of African youth are actually, out of school, this is a huge population, a significant population that we felt we need to do something and design solutions to meet that need. And more specifically for women, and because this is statistics also show us that 1 in every 20 girls are actually on track, only one are on track to complete secondary education. So what about the 19? And they say educate a woman, educate a community, educate a village. So this is 19 women, 19 girls that actually are left out of the solutions, that left out of the education pathways. So our challenge to ourselves was, how do we design solutions that actually target this population and meet the need or the growing gap that is actually within our society? So Educate's vision, in summary, is to create an alternative pathway for this specific population to employment and livelihood opportunities, hence why we call it Livelihood Bootcamps, for young women and girls in rural areas to access good opportunities when actually they're not able to complete secondary education. And yes, the youth is broad, but our target as of now is specifically young women and young girls.
Thank you for that great introduction about the program, Rachel, and also the context. I mean, 1 out of 20, women are out of school. That, I mean, are just going to school. That 19:1. That's a really appalling figure that we can note about. Can you tell a little bit about, why women? Like why you focus on women? What is the situation of like what's happening in the region, in these regions, that they're not able to complete school? What are the potential social, economical, emotional, cultural, and even other contextual barriers that restrict women from not completing schools, not finishing their education, and potentially skilling themselves?
Yes. So allow me to use an example. For example, within the context that I come from in Kenya, and yes, I'm based in Nairobi, but there's so many rural, out of urban area populations. And the reality of some of these girls is, one, technology, internet, access to resources, basic needs like education, water, health is something that is not a norm, right? So beyond the reality that education is not something that is easily available for all of them, they also have to face the burden that social cultural norms, sometimes early marriages, sometimes being faced with unplanned pregnancies that force them to have this new reality that they are facing. You're a young girl, you haven't completed education, and now you have probably a child or two to care of. So the demographic that we target is actually very diverse, and the needs are extreme. Some of them including the low literacy levels, and therefore even for us, when it comes to developing our curriculum and the core component of how we deliver the programs to the youth, we take into consideration the literacy levels. Do we deliver this course in languages that they actually can understand? And this will vary from county to county, from country to country, and it's something that we have to be intentional about so that we can make sure that nobody's actually left behind because of something like literacy levels or numeracy levels. When it comes to caring for their young children, when it comes to other cultural elements that they have to consider, for example, do we need to contact your partner, your father, to actually give you permission to attend the classes so that they know what is what you're coming to class to learn? All these elements we have had to ask ourselves, what are some of the barriers that actually limit the demographic we work with, the population that we work with, to make sure that we on our end can eliminate these barriers one by one and make sure all of them have access to this very impactful program. So yeah, that's some of the realities that we have to ask ourselves. And the good thing that we do is actually we do this in partnership with the youth themselves. We have focus group discussions, we have youth advisory committees that we make sure we interact with them very frequently so that we can know from their voice, from their community, from their context, what is it that they know that we should be aware of as we're designing this solution together with them. Yeah.
That's great. That's great. Thank you so much. So, I mean, you mentioned, you alluded a little bit towards, how Educate reaches out to young women. So, can you tell a little bit about, your gender equity strategy and how, you Educate goes out of, your way to design specifically programs for women? What are the specific components that, focus on, say, attracting women to the program, right? Like you mentioned about convincing your partners potentially in the house or the male household, head of the house, so to speak. And then you also, how do you ensure that, they are there through the course and also follow through, because that's the biggest challenge I feel, that yes, bringing them is extremely tough, but ensuring they stick and also follow through with their ideas of being an entrepreneur. I mean, having everything in a context of an urban, development. I mean, entrepreneurship is not easy, and it might be like triple harder, right, in these contexts.
Yes.
So how is it that, educators, focusing primarily on attracting women and ensuring they stick with their dream and with their vision until the, through their journey?
Great. I like that question because one of the things that I feel like we do well within Educate is designing solutions with a gender responsive mental or conscious space. Like we are conscious about the gender disparities, the gender gaps, and therefore when we design solution, we take a gender responsive or gender transformative approach. And when I talk about this, for us, we've summarized them into 3 key strategies or 3 key principles that drive our work, all with the demographic that we work with at the back of our mind. So the first barrier that we try to tackle is the element of participation and access. So for example, when participants tell us they lack support from their families, support from the head of the household, and as a barrier to joining the bootcamp, one of the things we ask ourselves, how do we eliminate this access barrier? So we've recruited local leaders, we've recruited local mentors, local youth to actually facilitate that interaction between the familial support and the youth and ourselves. We've also worked with community health volunteers who actually know door to door. This is the family setup. This is a youth in this specific household who might be able to benefit from this. We've ensure that we've also incorporated elements of local leaders, who have the authority and have, quote unquote, the gatekeepers into the society that they actually guard. So how do we make sure that we understand all these hierarchies and make sure that we are able to communicate and make all of us are on the same page so that we do not create another additional barrier to access for the youth? Another principle on our end is when it comes to gender responsive learning environments, we ask ourselves, how do we reinforce or validate gender equity when it comes to the curriculum and how it's delivered? For example, are our lessons specifically addressing different gender biases based on the societies or the communities and the context that they come from? And this will vary from county to county, from country to country. How do we look at maybe types of businesses that women engage in and figure out how do we promote them to actually access the types of businesses that unconventionally were not, something that women would engage in? Are the leaders there able to guide them and guide their process on how to learn to engage in these businesses, how to figure out market research, and build even the confidence and the grit to actually pursue this new business opportunity? So the learning environment is another thing that we also consider when it comes to our gender responsive components and how we structure the whole curriculum. Finally, the thing I would also highlight is we ensure that when it comes to facilitating community mentors and role models, there's longevity that we are creating through that community, and that longevity surrounding the girls and the young women that we are working with. So a few ways that we do this is, one, we recruit youth from the communities that we work with or we work in, to make sure that these are people who understand the context of the area. They can deliver the subjects, the content of the curriculum in the local languages, so that is another barrier that has been eliminated. They understand the types of businesses that can run very well in that context. So all these elements are us figuring out how do we also make sure that the community that surrounds the girls is something that is working for them and with them. So role models, we for every cohort, we've seen girls who do so impressive and so amazing, and we make sure that these are the champions that come to speak to the rest of the girls and the rest of the young women, to show them that it's possible, and this is how I actually took my path. You can follow the same path, you can charter your own path, but you can see from me being here in front of the class that it is actually possible. Yes.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you. I mean, I have one quick question. You mentioned about, gender responsive environments, learning, which is fantastic. In addition to that, how do you follow through, I guess, after the 3-week boot camp, you said, what is the process of ensuring, you're in touch with the women, or are they local communities that they, curious to know about, what happens after the 3 weeks?
I'd say, so I highlighted one of the core components of our course is actually the mentorship element. So we have a mentorship program, and this is also run by the mentors and the youth from the society that they come from. So one, again, they understand the context and they're very available in case there's any need to respond to a new challenge. In light of COVID, how do I adapt my business? In light of an ongoing election, how do we adopt based on the learnings in our environment or the context of our environment? And the other thing that we also ensure that we are doing is continuous learning, both within our team and from the society, to make sure that the youth are getting very current information, good examples to as part of the curriculum to actually utilize or to implement with for themselves. And the other thing I would highlight in terms of follow-ups is we actually have touch points with the youth 3 months in, 6 months in, 2 weeks post bootcamp, 1 year later, just so that we can also learn from them on what is working, how are you progressing, what is your family saying, how confident are you, what are you seeing as the changes in your life as a young girl in Uganda, as a young woman in Kakamega County in Kenya. And we've seen such amazing stories where we youth, like I know we shared a link with you for one of our youth called Rose, and hopefully you can share with the listeners or the people who view this. But Rose is one of the voices or the faces that you see, and your day is brightened because you can see where she came from and where she is right now. Rose is actually a single mother of 3 children. She was able to graduate from one of our boot camps and is running her own business right now. And she's actually in the she was able to see what is the need in my society and how can I respond to that and make a niche for myself. So equipped with the hard skills and soft skills that the bootcamp was able to give her, she was able to build the agency for herself to, one, identify a business that works out for her, that she's passionate about, and she's able to actually run it day by day, and her children see her do this. Her family, her relatives, her neighbors are actually seeing the change in her life. So Rose is just an example of the trajectory that we see when it comes to the youth that we are working with, but there are so many of those. There's Dora in Homa Bay County, who is one of my favorites personally. She had to drop out of school because she got pregnant, and the family told her, unfortunately, we cannot really support you at this stage. And she had to fend for herself. So moving from jobs where she used to wash clothes for one person from house to house, and now running, a fish value chain for herself, is something that is impressive. And she's very confident, and she says she can't wait to pay school fees for her own child. Something that, of course, affected her because she had to drop out of school. And you can see that this is actually a generational change that is going to happen because of this initiative. So there are many of these stories, and we are happy to share more of them. And I think for us, and myself personally, we're excited to wake up every day to know that there's something different that we are doing for our youth and this population and this target group that we work with that actually is in need of this solution. Yeah.
Super, super. Thank you so much, Rachel and Educate. I think this has been a remarkable program to learn from. We are going to link all of this in the description. Thank you again.
Thank you so much.